What is Walter doing today? I just got through shucking corn. That is some pretty looking corn. We're going on the front porch and snap some beans. Got a bunch of fresh vegetables in here today. And have you ever sat in a rocking chair on the front porch and snap beans? I have many a day. Used to watch my grandma do it. I reckon that watching her, I'd learn how. My grandma used to sit on the front porch in a rocking chair and twiddle her thumbs, something like this. And then she'd reverse it. I guess it was a way of worrying about stuff. She was a champion thumb twiddler. Wife will be home after a while to put that corn up, and I'll work on these beans. I think I threw an end in there. If I ain't careful, I'll be throwing the wrong pieces in the wrong box. Got a trash box down there to throw the ends and strings on. You ever do that? Throw the wrong thing away? That's what happens when you get old and absent-minded. Snapping beans and shucking greens. Let's see. My daughter gave us a whole bunch of vegetables. She gave us beans and tomatoes and corn and beans and okra. I ain't even got around to doing the okra yet. Noticed over there in Germany, old Bruce is picking his asparagus. I tried growing asparagus here. In fact, some of it's still sprinkling up around there in the back. But I never did get an asparagus you'd want to pick and eat it. And the roots or whatever they are up under the ground, maybe I should dig them up and transplant them to a better location. We go buy asparagus canned or sometimes get fresh at the market. I like asparagus. That's a good vegetable. Never actually growed any. Didn't know how. Something wrong with that bean. Would have wanted that one. These beans are a little on the skinny side, but they're good looking beans. I growed beans out there in my garden in the back. I don't know, it's been good 3 years ago now. We had beans up to yin-yang. I picked beans and picked beans. Did really good. I thought about growing some more, but my garden's growing up into weeds out there, and I'll never get around to that no time soon with all my little projects going on. Got a half a dozen projects backed up I want to work on, but I got involved in this boat. Had to put everything else on the back burner. But I want my viewers to know I ain't forgot about my other projects. My forge, I want to do my forge, and I want to do my generator project. Throw the beans on the floor, Walter. Gotta wash them anyway. Anyway, not much of a vlog today, but I appreciate you sitting around helping me shuck these beans. Snap these beans, I mean. I already done my shucking. Sat out there in the bench to shuck my corn. I think I just threw some beans away. Throwed all my shucks over in the woods to rot. Have to do it out there. You get them corn silks all over the porch, and you never get them all cleaned up. Not without washing down the porch. My tomato plants, I got a few little tomato plants around there behind the house. They're starting to do pretty good. One thing I still do every year is try to grow me a few tomatoes. Something about growing your own just so much better than buying one. What I saw at the grocery store, everybody and their brother needs to start growing their own lettuce. That stuff has got downright expensive. The stores ain't even selling it. They're having to cut back because nobody wants to pay that price for lettuce. Speaking of my grandma, I'm an amateur when it comes to snapping. My God, she was like a machine. She'd grab that bowl and go to snapping like a machine gun going off. I guess them old country folks back in them days, when they were putting up beans or corn or whatever, when I use the term putting up, I mean canning. They didn't really have freezers back in them days. We still do a little canning here. It's not uncommon for me to get out the canner and can a few things. But in the old days, folks had to grow their own vegetables, and you can't keep beans fresh forever unless you can them and put them up. You take them things and can them and put them in mason jars, last you all year. So back in them days when Grandma was doing that, she probably had like 2 bushels of beans there at one time to snap. You can't play games and piddle around with them like I'm doing, or she'd be out there snapping for 2 weeks. These beans are a little bit on the limp side, but they're still good looking beans. As long as you hear them snap like that, they're doing pretty good. A lot of people just cut the ends off. It might be a little bit wasteful the way I'm breaking a big end off, but that's usually the tough part anyway. What we'll do with these beans here, once I got them all snapped, we're not going to eat them right away, so I'll get some pot of boiling water on the stove. Get the water to boiling with a little bit of salt. You just don't use a lot of salt with my diet. After you've cleaned and washed your snapped beans, you dunk them in that boiling water for about 3 minutes. Strain them out and cool them off with cold water. Put them in Ziploc bags and put them in a freezer. If you're canning, it's a lot more work involved in that. You got to put them in jars and dip them in water for 18 long. Clean the lids and seal. We got 2 freezers in the basement. We keep them pretty well occupied with stuff. There was a time where we canned everything. Still got my jars down there though. Throwing the ends in there with the beans. It just occurred to me, a lot of my footage that I've been sitting here talking, it just occurred to me a lot of my footage might not have been on the camera. I forget when I'm using this GoPro on my hat. Sometimes I'm videoing off in the distance while I'm pointing at something else. I gotta admit, I have some fond memories of my childhood, even though we were poor people living out in the country on a dirt road. Played up and down that dirt road barefooted. But I gotta admit, I got some fond memories of Grandma and that era. It's not a lot. Some of them some of the things, hardships you don't want to remember. On a recent trip, I think I made a video of it, made a recent trip down to Pwalpar County and visited the graves and flowers on Mama's grave. But it's so far down there you can't go too often. From here it takes you a good 8 hours to drive down there. Georgia is the biggest state east of the Mississippi River. How many people knew that? It wouldn't compare in size to Texas, but Texas is on the other side of the river, so they don't count. How about that Texas Viking? You get offended when I say Texas don't count? Yeah, Texas Viking does some pretty good videos. Does a lot of fancy dancy welding. I couldn't hold my hands that steady. I welded my whole life working for the railroad. But the type of welding he's doing, you gotta have a steady hand for that. Most welding I always did was arc welding. I've done a little bit of gas welding, brazing and stuff like that, but when you get into the type of welding they're doing, you gotta pretty well know what you're doing. Just give old Texas Viking a shout out. That's what I'm doing. He pretty good old boy. Terry, I believe is his name. I'm not big on remembering names. Anyway, I'm going to conclude my vlog for today, my friends. And I appreciate your company on the front porch.